Everybody from the cleanest stage in London. Did you think the cleaner was going to be there? Yeah, I was hoping she would actually. That would be a bit more relaxing, but let's get started. So first session in the big room with the big bright lights. So if I've got sort of squirrel in the headlights, it's not the mask, this is actually my face. So this is justifying Salesforce solutions, how I get my designs approved. So hello, I'm Matthew Morris. My day job is the Salesforce CTO at Capgemini here in the UK. Over the last 15 years, I've done lots of different jobs in the Salesforce world, small businesses, large businesses, and really kind of the things I'm going to show you today are very much me documenting my own struggle. That was a great phrase I heard from one of my best friends, and that's really what this is. What I'm going to share with you is probably easier read in a book. If I'd have read the book, I probably could have got the knowledge in half the time. But I don't learn that way, so I'm going to share with you. And what we're talking about, really, it builds on what I've been sharing for the last 7 years or so, which is around diagramming, which is around storytelling, communicating with people, trying to get people all on the same page before we start doing stuff or in the middle of doing stuff. And what led me to what we're going to talk about today really was watching people on design review calls or on design authority sign-off calls just absolutely jump off the cliff and pancake. So depending on the situation you're in, but let's say it's in a sort of a fairly formal situation, you as an architect will be going to a panel of other architects who look after the Salesforce org, make sure it doesn't get in any worse shape than it probably already is, and you're going to say, here's my solution, here's how I want to do it. And what I learned the hard way, and learned from experience and learned by watching others, is there's a good way to do that, or there's a better way than some alternatives. And this is definitely not the way to do it. You know, just kind of come up with a solution, jump on a call and say, guys, this is all right, isn't it? That's not really going to have the most positive outcome. So what could be the structure that we would use? Well, we need to talk about the key factors that we're going to justify this solution versus a different solution. And we need to prepare before we go and ask for permission to put this into the Salesforce org. And that could be in a formal way, could be in an informal way, but one of the other things that's increasingly important and has been for the last few years is even if you're a small business, keeping a log of the decisions that were made. Why did we do this thing? Why did we do this thing? Having that understanding of, at that point in time, why did we make that decision? Really, this is part of the process, and coming at the end and saying, is it okay to do this? Can you rubber stamp it? Is just really the culmination of a process. So those preparations we'll talk about. And then the need to align the people and the requirements. So you could come up with the most amazing whiz-bang technical solution, but if it doesn't fit the situation, people are probably not going to buy into it. Likewise, you could have something that's not technically the best, but maybe it's the most applicable for the state that the business is in, the level of maturity they've got, or perhaps some other things they're dealing with in terms of technology change or business change. So it's really kind of balancing those internal and external factors, things that are within the org and also things that are within the overall the business organization. And then having a good structure to present your solution so you can lay it out clearly so that people are, have a good understanding of what it is that you're asking and why it is that you've made the choices that you've done. And then finally, let's look at how to navigate a review ceremony. This sort of thing at the end where we're going to ask for that tick in the box, ask for that rubber stamp. Sound good? I can't see you because it's too bright. So, okay, so I told you I've done pretty much every job, so I've spent quite a good amount of time doing consultancy. So I do PowerPoint quite well and also do things in threes because consultants always do things in threes. So let's go with a triangle and say, well, what makes the solution justified? Well, we're going to start with the requirements that we've been given or that we've extracted or that we've inherited, but there's going to be something that we want to do. And that could be highly specific, highly technical, or it could just be a more general, we don't have a backup solution, or something that's a bit more non-functional and maybe doesn't have a business process associated with it. Doesn't really matter what it is, there's going to be something that's going to need to be done. So on the chart here, let's call those the requirements. And then there's going to be some choices, and that's really what I was talking about a little bit in the warm-up slide, right? Which is how do we balance all of these things that we're going to evaluate. And this is where your skills and your experience, so your experience in Salesforce, your experience working with people, your experience in the industry, all of these things are going to affect the choices that you consider, and then ultimately whatever you select. And then last of all, it's the people. So the old sort of people, process, technology, enterprise architecture, go-to, it's true. I used to joke with relatives about 20 years ago, before I even got to Salesforce. They said, sort of an older person would ask me, what do you do? And I said, well, I used to say I was in the technology business, but really I'm in the people business. We're all in the people business, and particularly with SaaS products like Salesforce that need to justify their value day after day, month after month, renewal after renewal. It very much is a people business, I believe. And so that brings us on to the magic thing in the middle, which is alignment. And creating alignment is one of the key responsibilities of the architect. You could be the most super programmer, technical architect, know absolutely all of the numbers about Salesforce, all of the limits, all of the constraints, all of the pluses, all of the minuses, but if you're not able to draw those things together in a human way and create alignment, you're not going to be effective. So all of those badges, all of those certifications, you're not getting the most out of them. So, this is a new slide deck, by the way, so I can't remember where I put the transitions. I made it exciting for myself. So let's look at the timeline. So we've got our requirements, we've got our choices, we've got our people. So requirements are going to be identified. We're going to then take that as a team, as an individual, analyze, refine, shake out the details, and really get to the bottom of, okay, what is it we think we need to be doing here? And then from the point of view of our choices, that's going to lead us to one or more solutions. Ideally, we probably want more than one solution so that we can show that we've thought about some options. And then we're going to go to the people and we're going to ask for approval, right? Because we got the right answer, right? Probably not. But really what we want to do is we want to build it, right? That's why I like working in technology, straight to solution, build some cool stuff. But that has consequences. So we can't really do that. We need to think about the alignment. So why don't we just squeeze the alignment in as one more task? So before we go and ask for approval, let's just make sure, hey, I'm going to come and see you at that meeting in an hour. Are you all right with that thing that I've done? What thing have you done, Matt? Tell me, I don't know anything about this. So probably better that we do something, I'm trying to remember the transition, we do something that's a bit more holistic, which really is, we're in the people business, alignment runs all the way through. So as we go through with our requirements and the choices, it's really involving the people so that when we come to the approval, it's not the first time anybody's seen it. Everybody's aware of what's been going on, and nobody's raising objections at that point. So who are the people? I'm so happy I could find a reason to put some Dilbert in. So what sorts of people are we talking about? And this is just sort of some examples from my experience, right? Documenting my own struggle, like I said. So you've got your Salesforce architect. That's me, that's you. That's the job we do, right? And really, it's the relationships that we have with these other types of people that are involved in the day-to-day of the business. So they could work in IT, they could work in the commercial side, they could work in the operations side. It's really those relationships that we have with these different types of people. So what are these types? So the first one is influencers. Does anybody know the character's name? Anybody know the character's name? It's Alice. Has anybody read Dilbert? If you work in technology, you need to read Dilbert because it helps you understand organizations. So influencers are people who are not directly involved in the project, right? But people talk to other people. And so influencers mostly can be used for the good. We'll come on to the bad in a bit. But influencers can be used for the good. So this is really where investing your time, perhaps beyond the narrow focus of the team that you're working in, the project that you're working in, can pay dividends, right? if you build your credibility, build your reputation, even if it's just that person's a decent person, that person listens to me, that person, considers things, all of these things add up to your presence and your standing within the environment that you're working. Supporters, so that's a bit more obvious. These are people who are more directly involved with what it is that you're doing, and they want you to do whatever you think needs to be done. So it could be the person that hired you, could be people in your team. But again, building relationships and spending time so that people are involved in this process, whether it's a simple change or whether it's something that's much more complex and much more involved, involving the people around you that can support you. And not just with knowledge, right? They can pick you up when it's been a bit of a rough meeting or you're flagging a bit. All of this kind of stuff is that your supporters can give you is going to add to producing a better outcome. That's Wally, by the way, supporters. Pointy head boss, that's your decision makers. Pretty obvious. Those are going to be the people that sign off. Now, this could be in a lot of different situations, right? You could be, preparing for a decision that is sales related. Hey, do we want to spend the money on this thing? So it could be somebody from a commercial point of view, or it could be somebody around technology governance, right? So it could be another panel of architects, right? Could possibly be architects from the vendor, right? So I've been in plenty of situations where the design authority architects are actually staffed as the Salesforce professional services people, and they are quite opinionated about how you should use Salesforce. Now, I don't always see things the same way. I think you can do some things with Salesforce that maybe Salesforce professional services wouldn't bless. Again, if you can help them understand why you're thinking the way you are, and also listen to them, it's going to be a better outcome when you come to the review process. Rule makers. So this are things that you can't change, that you can't really influence over. So people that work in legal, compliance, procurement. That's another good one as well. You might have a solution that says, we want to buy this thing, and they've got money. They'll be like, no, we're not buying that thing because it's hosted somewhere, or it's not validated, it's not been signed off. So being aware that people who are not directly involved with you day to day still have an impact on your destiny. That's Catbut, by the way, Catbut. And then last of all is loud Howard. And this is detractors. And this for me really is the only negative. And this is the only negative because detractors are the label that I give people who don't actually contribute to the process. They don't contribute to saying, well, that thing's wrong, why don't you think about this? Or that thing's wrong because. They just make a lot of noise. And making a lot of noise causes a lot of disruption. It upsets some of the other types of people that are involved, makes some of them nervous. Oh, I heard Howard tell me something which is probably not true. But again, it just means that you've got to work harder, but for no real forward value, yeah? So identifying your detractors and trying to actively manage them, as you can see another talk coming here, trying to actively manage them is the way to get ahead of that. Can we change it? Well, can we make them go away? No, it's just a reality. There are always going to be these types of people. So then we need to work to align these people. So really, you've got to take what you're thinking and represent it in a good way. So this kind of calls back to where diagrams are good, demos are good as well. Even if it's not the thing that you're building, if they've never seen Salesforce before and you're like, hey, we're going to do this thing in Salesforce, you better show them Salesforce. That tends to calm people down quite a lot. So using the tools that you have, so anything around design documents, anything around roadmaps, anything around plans, anything that makes things real and concrete for people. If they're technical, they might want to see a data model. They might want to see a landscape. So as an architect, these things are stock in trade. For us, I've spoken before about creating these things, maintaining them, updating them over time, keeping them in your bag. Because if you've got a page, your page is the right page. That's some consultant wisdom I was given, and it's very true. If you're having a discussion and you can pull something up on your laptop or out of your bag and put it on the table and everybody starts pointing at it, that's a big plus. You're reducing the noise and increasing the forward momentum. And then really it's kind of protect yourself. So before you set expectations about, hey, we're engaged in solutioning this thing and in a month's time we're going to come and we're going to be seeking a decision and therefore, provided we get sign off, this is the delivery date in the future. Before you set any of those expectations, It's really, really important in my experience to make sure that it's going to be possible. And I've summarized them here really as, are you clear on what's being asked? Are they being clear in what they're asking for? So it might be before you even get to the task of solving the problem that they might be asking you, you've probably got to solve some other problems to dig into the detail. So, very much business analysis, Salesforce admin type techniques to say, tell me more, show me your spreadsheets, what do you really mean? Do you have access to information perhaps beyond the immediate request that's being made? So do you need to go talk to BAU teams because there's data over on other systems and you need to find out, what integration capabilities they've got, or how often that data is updated? If you don't have access to that people and they've not been involved either by request or by mandate to give you some of their time, this can really slow you down and really cause disruption. And I've had that recently with a colleague of mine who's just been banging his head against a brick wall because the BAU team, he hasn't got a code to get any of their time. It's ridiculous. So, trying to anticipate the craziness of organizations, read Dilbert, try and anticipate the craziness of organizations before you get started. Anything that can go wrong probably will go wrong. Likewise, you've got access to the people, so is somebody on holiday at the wrong time? That's one that's very relevant this time of year. Are you able to, get an introduction, to somebody else that maybe you don't know? Is there somebody within the immediate team that could introduce you? All of these kinds of things. How can you reduce the friction for yourself? And then finally, are the timescales reasonable? When do you want it? Next week? Sure thing. You do know that we can't get sign-off for 2 weeks, so it's going to be a minimum of 4 weeks, right? So thinking really about what those timescales are. Okay, so there's a timer on here which has just gone to 0, and I thought, I've been waffling that long. I haven't. And really, fundamentally, it comes down to this, which is, the quality of the requirements is the baseline for what the quality of the solution can be. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you're given something that's not the best requirements, how the heck are you going to have a good chance of creating good solutions? So that pre-work to refine what it is that they're being asked for. Maybe they're asking for 5 things at once, and actually you need to break it down. So thinking about, okay, what do they ask for functionally? What business processes want to be supported? But also any kind of non-functional implications that come to that, right? So it could be something around data residency. That's always a gotcha. Could be something around firewalls and integration. Just kind of anticipating those things. Any assumptions, just like any good project hygiene, you're going to list your assumptions, list your risks. And this really is where, again, relationships are key. If you're all by yourself doing everything, it's a lot harder. If you've got a project manager or an engagement manager working with you, enlist their support for these kind of hygiene things. And then finally, any constraints. We'll come on to that in a sec. So now we're to the point of using our skills, using our experience. So we want to build cool stuff. That's why I'm in technology. So thinking about customization, what are the choices that we have available? And why do we need to be categorizing the choices we make? Well, we need to think about how we're going to justify them, or actually how we're going to put alternative options, even if we think that this way of doing the solution we would never really seriously consider doing it. Sometimes it pays, oftentimes it pays, to put up that example of, well, there is an alternative, we can write it all in Apex from the ground up, but it's probably not a good idea for these reasons. So thinking about, okay, can we just do something from out of the box with a bit of config? Do we need some low code? I think low code for me is only formula fields, flows programming, but anyway. Low code, pro code, flows, flows and Apex. What about our ISV solution, right? Is there a third-party solution that we can buy in? Yes, it costs money. And then in terms of the justification, we're showing people what the total cost of ownership is. If we build it, we own it, we've got to maintain it. So again, making those things clear when you come to ask for the approval of the choice that you've made, having those sort of justifications are very, very necessary because you're going to be asked the questions. And then what's the constraints? So constraints is a good one because there's things that are pretty obvious, right? So like well, it's a third-party solution, but there's no budget. Okay, well, cost, that's definitely a constraint. We can't change that. I put laws because it fitted in the bubble better, but anything that's kind of around compliance or regulation or any of that sort of stuff that we can't change. And then we're kind of into the other ones that are very relevant in most Salesforce orgs that I work in. So tech debt. So there could be a mountain of tech debt, could be a mountain of garbage in there that's built up over the last 10 years. That really limits a lot of the problems. A lot of that constrains a lot of the choices that we get to make. That brings us on to limits, right? So you might be wanting to add some additional pick list values, but the object limits on that object have been maxed out. Case object, no more pick list values, sorry. Go talk to these teams and try and get them to remove some of their pick list values. So these kinds of constraints are worth considering because, again, they have impact on time. So there's things that you can change, but they might take time to do that. And then there's things that you can't change, so probably means it's not going to be a solution that you'll go for. And then last of all is what is termed as guardrails, guidelines, any rules that have been set up either because they're best practice or in a reaction to trying to deal with tech debt and limits and maybe regulatory compliance environments. So if there is a formal design authority that's established and it's a larger organization, not only should you make friends with the people who run it, you should also understand what is the rules that they've set down and don't immediately think that you can throw them out to one side because they probably would have been very heavily argued for and against over time. So knowing what the rules are really in terms of constraints. And then you're in a position really to put your options together. And the way that I approach it is, you oftentimes can do the first version off the top of your head, right? But kind of keep those things as listing the pros and cons of each one, because you're going to come back to this at the review stage. So as you go through and make something up, you go through in solution, keeping that list of pros and cons, why this is good, why this is bad, not necessarily why one is better than the other, but why this particular option has merit or might be one that we don't want to do. List those as the pros and cons, because then you're going to, in our ongoing alignment with your stakeholders, we're going to shop that around with Loud Howard, who looks like he's eating the arrow. And that's really, that's you in the middle, that's me in the middle, running around, lots of meetings, lots of calls, keeping people updated. That could be through cadence meetings, or it could just be, hey, you got 10 minutes so I can show you where we're at with this thing, building that relationship. But again, you're keeping their awareness that you're working through solutioning something, could be something small, could be something big. You're working through it, and they feel like they're part of the process. And if they give you feedback, you can listen to it and incorporate it as appropriate. And then that's going to give you your preferred option. And you might have that in your mind, right, pre-decided as you say, well, I know how we're going to do this. But you still need to, again, put a little bit of time aside to put those alternatives together, just even at a summary level, to say why you didn't do something, because you should be challenged by your peers, because I'm lazy, I admit it, right? It's like, oh yeah, we can just do this with a quick custom field. Well, hang on a minute, there's a standard field to use that. Yeah, but another team's using that, and I've got to go talk to them, and it's going to take time, and I don't have the time. So that kind of governance, that kind of challenge between peers really helps to improve the longevity of the Salesforce org, because otherwise you might go and do something stupid that has consequences for the long term. And once you've got your preferred option, you can summarize it in a little bit more detail. Again, you're going to shop that around with the stakeholders. You might go to high-level design. That's optional, depending on how committed you are or how much you maybe already have, right? You may already have quite a lot of stuff that would be applicable to a lot of the options, but now you're kind of settling on the finer points. So you've got that preferred option and the information that goes with it. So now we're ready, right? We're ready to jump off, tether's attached, it's the right length, we're just going to get a little bit wet into the river. So I kind of gave the name approval ceremonies to this, sort of stealing a little bit from agile ceremonies, because there is an air of ceremony to it, but there shouldn't be any surprises. That's really the whole point. So whether it's a sales pitch or where what sort of gave rise to this talk, which was the technical design authority, could just be something that's less formal, like a solution review, could be part of a job interview. right? It could be a case study that you've been given as a job interview. Wouldn't it be great if you could, give them a little bit of, well, there's a couple of options here, and here's the pros and cons of both, but I went with this one. That makes you look like a very considered, very practiced architect. Or it could be something like a certification board. And then as you're going through this ceremony, this is the time to be concise. This is the time to say less. And you shouldn't need to say very much because you've already said a lot with these people in discussion over time. And it's really this bullet point that is the reason that I'm stood on this stage today, because as you just watch in slow motion, as a highly technical, highly knowledgeable architect just goes down, 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 down into the detail of the solution and why it's so wonderful and why they considered this field and not that field type. And you can just see the blood drain from everybody's faces, whether they're actually, have the responsibility of reviewing this. Should I stop him? Should I stop him? Or their, colleagues have just like, oh, this is a car crash. So be concise. It's your friend. And it's a performance. Right? So being practiced in, how to present the facts, and then, pause and listen, and don't be afraid of questions because you're prepared, you've already talked to these people. Rehearse. If they've got a format defined, which if it's a formal review, they might, or a job interview, they might have told you what structure they want, follow that structure. If they don't, then you can use a very simple format. And then stick to the time limit. And if they don't have a defined time limit, set yourself a target so that you don't go down, 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 down into the detail. And again, likewise with the content and the format of it, if it's defined, use it. If it's not defined, again, keep it simple. And you can always have a copy of the documents that you've been shopping around in the appendices, right? You can always have those at the back of the PowerPoint deck or in the back of the document. So if anybody wants to look at them or some conversation ensues, you've got it to hand and you can pull it up. So this is the keep it stupid simple approval format that I kind of follow, and a lot of design authorities follow, for example, which is there might be some people on the call that aren't familiar with it, right? There might be some architects from other teams, hangers on, whatever, right? So it's good practice to summarize what's the problem that you're going to solve. You're going to summarize the constraints that you've considered. All of this stuff, right, is stuff we've talked about the last few pages. Yeah, so you've gathered this as you've gone along. You don't have to make it up 5 minutes before the show. List the options that you considered, and then describe the key factor about why you discarded this option, and ultimately what made this option attractive, but we didn't select it. What made this option attractive, and we did select it. And as well, if you can, highlight any positives beyond solving the requirement, right? So if we solve the requirement and we use standard features, no additional tech debt, guys, that's a big tick. And then talking about any trade-offs that you've made. We're going to need to, write a custom flow for this, but I have a plan that, in 6 months' time on the roadmap, we're actually going to be revisiting this area. Let's say that's like a quoting process or something. We're going to be redoing this in 6 months. Whether that actually happens or not, I don't know, but it's always good to kind of put into the review. And then this really is the golden rule, and you probably picked up on it all the way through, right? At this point, anybody who's involved in the decision, it should never be the first time they've seen it, because if it's the first time you've seen something, what do you want to do? You want to ask a question. Hey, I have a question. Make sure you've dealt with those beforehand, because this is the ceremony, right? This is not the let's have a discussion and a meeting. This is we're signing off. How can we get this done? 10 minutes? Okay, good. Let's try to do mental maths as the timer goes down to 0 again. It's not working for me. Okay, so little recap. We've talked about the key factors needed to justify the solution. Preparation is everything. Preparation around, are we clear on what's being asked and are we able to execute it? Who are the people that we need to be involved formally? Who are the people that I can see might be interested and have an opinion on this for the better or for the worst? How can we start to align those people? And then ultimately, keep it simple. If they tell you what the format is, follow that format, but structure it in a way that keeps those things, keeps your notes in a structured format as you go through the process so that you can pull them together when you come to the review, whether it's formal or whether it's informal. And then we talked about how to navigate the review ceremony. So please, don't be that person that goes down and down and down and down and down and down. I think I've done it, not for a long time, but it's bad. It's bad. And there's no need for it, right? You just, if you talk to people beforehand, you don't need to convince them of anything in that moment, right? They should already know. You should already know, actually, whether they're going to say yes or no. And that's really why it's a ceremony. So that's it. That's how to get your designs approved. So happy landings, don't forget to click up. And anybody got any questions? Okay. Oh, that mic's not on. I don't, but this man's got a loud voice because I know him. Oh, it's on. Here we go.
Thank you. Can you give us just an example of where you presented a solution and the decision makers have said no, and they've come up with a valid reason, and you've had to retreat and come back and do something different?
What, like at the end in a kind of a sign-off call? Yes, when I've done it wrong, when I've not talked to them beforehand. So it would be something like, a couple of years ago, a very heavily used case object, and we're like, oh, we need to use the origin field because nobody else is using it, and it's a pick list field that we can use, and there's no more custom fields available, and we just want to put some pick list values on so that we can say what channel that came in through. And they're like, that's not what the origin field's for. Duh. That was bad on me, right? Because I didn't follow the process. I didn't follow my own process of, well, let's go check if people are going to be okay with that. So it can be something as simple as that. It's not my org, right? It wasn't my org. I can't do what I want with it. So I think that would be my best example. You could get tripped up with what you think is the most basic thing. Does that answer it? Yeah. It's the man in the hat.
I noticed you called it the preferred solution, not the recommended solution. I caught that semantic nuance. Have you found that create less friction because it changes the nature of the dialogue?
Yes, I'm a people pleaser. So I think it depends on the nature of the situation. I guess when I was putting the slides together, I did think, is this a recommended solution or is this a preferred solution? I think that calling it a preferred solution leaves the door open better. That's, I guess it's as fluffy and as cuddly as that. But I think it really is, because if you say this is recommended, you can just, somebody's going to find a way. One of the detractors is going to say, I don't agree with that. If you say, well, this is preferred, they say, I don't agree with that. We say, well, I prefer it. Why don't you? They probably don't have an answer because they're a detractor, but yeah. Does that kind of cover it? Yeah?
You have spoken about multiple people, and they will have different perspectives, basically. So in our mind, it may be very much technical, and we have to convey the same message to them. Maybe the communication platform is different for everyone. So, many times we are asked to give something as a demo or show them something, but Salesforce as a platform, many times you feel like doing something for a demo or a POC, maybe it's almost like
you might as well build it.
Doing the solution.
Yeah.
So how do you handle those situations?
Oh, this is like all my dirty laundry now. So I told you I like being in tech because you get to build cool stuff. And a lot of times with my team, I'm like, let's go straight to solution because that's how I am. Yeah, a lot of the time the solution is obvious. And you think, well, look, don't tell them, show them. And it's really powerful to do that, right? We've got a situation right now where we're doing quoting, and it's like so natural that we'd actually generate an order from the quote. Do we go and show them a PowerPoint slide of that, or do we just show them what it would look like, and it will take us a couple of hours to build that up? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's a positive. If maybe your sort of the underlying question is, are you kind of compromising yourself in terms of being a balanced and impartial architect because you went all in on this solution? Well, cover yourself by having that list of, well, here's 3 ways we could do it. Here's the pros and cons. This is the one I prefer. And, we knocked a demo up so you could see it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I do it all the time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. How are we doing for time? Let's see. 5? Oh, got time for one more? Just one more. Yeah.
This is Anvesh. I want to ask more on the technical standpoint. So when we design a solution, there is an evergreen solution which is proven in the last decade that many organizations has implemented in the native approach. On the other side, there are a lot of new technical things coming in the market, modern things, whatever it is, which may not be proven in the market. Okay, but as an architect, you need to take a solution, like we need to balance between the native solution plus modern solution.
Yeah.
How we take effective decision there? How
Yeah.
we need to balance it?
That is a really, really relevant point right now. So as Salesforce evolved their platform, bringing things now which change the architecture that is available to us, so things like Data Cloud, things like Hyperforce, things like Marketing Cloud on Core, all of this it's effectively new ways of doing things. I have customers who are not even aware of any of these things, and they just are like, cram everything into the org, that's Customer 360. So yes, we're going to have to manage our way through this. It's a bigger change. It's a bigger conversation than just, well, there's new technologies. I've been asked for this one particular requirement. Let's tear up the architecture and spend tens of millions of pounds. I don't think we're going to get very far with that. But I guess as an architect, it's also a responsibility of ours to show what could be possible, to talk about future roadmap. It's a little bit like where I was talking about what are sort of the consequential benefits of taking a particular approach. So maybe sort of half an answer for you is, you're looking at something, you're like, oh, we're in this 10-year-old org, it's absolutely laden with tech debt. What the heck are we going to do? We can only use this crusty solution. Wouldn't it be nice if we had Data Cloud? You're going to have to do the practical, pragmatic solution because they want it for £10 and they want it next week. Tell them that's why you've done it that way, and then you can also illustrate, what we might want to think about more longer term. But very, very relevant question because there's a lot of change going on. Yeah. Okay, good. Who's that? It's Nick.
It
Hi,
is.
Nick.
Hi, Matt. When you're presenting the options, do you put your preferred one first or last?
Oh. What would you do? You think last? Yeah. I don't know. I think again, I'm a people pleaser. It's like, what's going to play well? But I think just, practically doing it last, you can kind of go, there's option A and B, blah, blah. Okay, option C, this is the one we're going with. I mean, actually in the introduction, you say there's 3 options. These are what they're called, and this is the one I'm going for. So I don't think there's any great sort of reveal in it. And again, it shouldn't be a great reveal, right? It shouldn't be like the end of changing rooms where they walk in the door and you go, look, it's your new zebra sofa. And they're like, ah! They should actually know what they're getting anyway. But yeah, I mean, look, we've got to have some fun in our job. So if you want to do a bit of theatrics with it, but at your peril, surprise people, that would be bad. Okay,
We got 1 minute if anybody has a short question.
Hi. So what do you do when the preferred solution is the decision maker's preferred solution? Because obviously you're not going in with a surprise, but it's not the solution that you would have recommended. How do you present that with a straight face?
I think that's a very, very difficult question. So if I understand you rightly, this is where there's a difference of opinion between what the architect thinks is the best way to do it and maybe what one of the decision makers does, because they think they've got all the answers. I think my best answer for that is you're not ready to go to the decision point. And I think as an architect, the only lever that you can really pull on at that point is to say, we're not ready yet, guys, we're not ready yet, guys, and just try to get people back into alignment. And I think, to be kind to ourselves, we can't win every battle. So sometimes you just gotta go with it, and well, we'll put that one in the lose column, but we'll win again another day. But in aggregate, we want to create better systems, not worse. Okay? He's giving me this. Time's up. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.